I'm going to go ahead and show you these buttons, how to do these. This is with two different colors that you're winding around. This is one, and this one's two, and different threads. So this I used Aurora, this one I used metallic, this one I used a spun silk in here with the pearl cotton, and this one metallic as well. So you can see that you can play around with different threads and really have some fun with the effects that you can get from these. These are really interesting to do. I feel like if you were a mathematician, this would be like right up your alley. I am not, but I was able to sort of do variations on these and kind of figure it out. So I'll show you this, and then you can kind of take it and run with it and go wild. So let's get started. So obviously this is with one of these metal rings. I got this washer. It's way too heavy, so I actually am not going to put a link for that. This is the one that I have a link for, and the only problem is that you get this huge box of washers, and I'm never going to use these really small ones, but I will use these, and this is what I'm using. So you're just going to grab one of these. It's an M30, but be careful, because this is also listed as an M30, and look how much bigger it is. It's, I guess, anyway, so you have to be careful. This is the one I have a link to, not this one. And the other is my Dorset Button Ring, and it's 1 1/8 inches, this ring. And I rather like this one because it is the same size. Now, obviously, you can go much bigger. I did with this one. This is the star that I showed how to do. And this is the same as these. It's just that I'm wrapping it closer. So, and you can see this ring is obviously much bigger. And I kind of like this ring. But yeah, you can go bigger. This is 1.5 inches, I think. So in any case, let's get started with these. The first thing I do is I put wax. I have my beeswax. I'll put the link for the beeswax down below. I cover the whole ring, regardless of whether it's a Dorset button ring or a plastic or the aluminum O-ring. I'm going to add the beeswax to it because it just gives it a little something, the thread to stick against, and I like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this, and I'll come back when I'm finished rubbing the wax all over it. I'm going to use these 3 colors, and I'm going to use my aluminum O-ring. I've covered the whole thing in my beeswax. I'm going to start with the black. It does not matter how many of these spokes you do. It can be odd or even. It doesn't matter how many of these you wrap. You can do 3, you can do 5, you can do 2, you can do 1. I'm doing 3. For left-handed, I'm going to turn it clockwise. If you're right-handed, you're going to be turning it counterclockwise. I just want to make sure that these are even. Doesn't matter. It's about keeping these even. You can also scoot them over. You can also mark them so that they're evenly spaced. Whatever works. I'm actually not even counting how many I have. When I'm finished, I'm going to cut the thread off in the back. I'm going to tie a knot. Let's see how many I have. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And that's fine. I turn it over. You can thread it onto a larger needle. Just because it's an 8-weight thread doesn't mean you have to put it onto a 24 chenille. You can thread it onto an 18 chenille. I'm going to find this thread. I'm going to snip off these ends. And then I can tweak these so that they're, just to make sure that they're all evenly spaced and the threads are pushed together. Now I'm going to take my next color, which is this one. And here's the thing, if I want this to be closed or very close to closed, like this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find one of these spokes going up and down, and I'm going to go just to the left of it. If I'm right-handed, I'll be going the other way, just to the right of it. Grabbing these, and then I'll be turning counterclockwise and going over the spokes like this all the way around. Now I can also do this from here to here, so I'm literally just one spoke away from center, and you can see that as I turn this, I'm not going to have a big gap here. I'm going to have a very, very small gap, which is what this is. For left-handed, I'm going to be doing the other way. I'm going to take my center spoke and I'll be going this way, turning clockwise. Right? Like that. Now, if I want this to be farther away, a larger opening, like that, then I'm going to go farther away from this. The distance from here to the spoke is going to be farther. And the farther away I go, the larger my hole is going to be, right? So I can do this all the way around. A word of warning, as you get farther away, it does become a little more challenging to wrap these and not have them fall off of the spoke. So it just, it's cool, but you just have to know that it does get harder. So this one has already fallen off. It's supposed to be over there. Now the beeswax can help, but it won't completely do it. I'm going to keep going around. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that the black threads are sandwiched between the red. And now they are. They're completely sandwiched. So, like I did with the black, I'm going to cut off my length here. I'm going to thread up my needle and I'm going to tie it to the other end. Okay, now I can clip those off. Now I can take my metallic and I'm going to go around even fewer. This is a pretty thick metallic. I have a thinner one and that actually is going to work better for me. So I'm going to find that and use that one. All right, so I'm going to use my metallic thread and I just want to make sure that when I wrap it, I'm wrapping it just a little bit less than the thread that I did before, the red thread. It does need to be fairly taut because otherwise it will come off. I do use my fingers to hold the thread down that I've just wrapped. I find that helpful. And I'm going to keep going until each one of these red wraps is echoed by a metallic, which is that. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to clip my metallic thread. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the other two. I'm going to thread up a needle. I can go ahead and thread it in here just to sort of hold it. And now I'm going to take this one, I'm going to tie my knot. I can go ahead and clip those ends. And there I have my 3 different colors with the 2 wrapping going around the edge. Now what I can do, what I like to do is I like to take each of these little crosses and just tack it down with some color. And then I'm going to go and do my wraps. A Dorset button, you would start with the wraps. With the Zurcher buttons, you end. And that's what I'm doing now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these with the red and I'm going to wrap the rest with black. So I'm going to pull off a length of red Go ahead and thread my 24 chenille. I'm using a thinner needle with the 8-weight thread. I'm going to go ahead and use the 24 chenille just because this is delicate and I don't want a big clumpy needle. And what I'm going to be doing is I will be going around each of these. I want to be sure I get that and don't pierce the thread. So I'm going to be going around each of these little X's. And I want to make sure that I pull it in. I get a little tightness there. And then I'm going to go to my next X. And I check the back to be sure that I'm getting the right threads. And I check the front. And then I go into the back. When I pull this through, I'm also going to pull my needle through that loop just to give it a little added pull so that I can keep that thread where it should be, not worry about it slipping around. Go through here, go in here, slip my needle up through that back loop, just to ensure that I can pull it. I'm going to go all the way around doing this, and then I'll start my wraps. So I did my red tacking stitch all the way around to ensure that these guys stayed where they were and didn't start to move, because that's the concern, is that the red or the metallic start to slip off, which they can do when you're doing this wide of a, keeping that circle pretty wide. So now I'm going to end this thread, the red, and I'm going to tie up my black, and I'm going to start wrapping around with the black. This is a back side. I'm just going to weave my thread, my needle in to center. Tie a knot. I can weave it in a couple times. You can leave it hanging if you want to use it to tie this onto whatever you're using it for. Or you can just end it and figure you'll tie a new thread on, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab my black, cut off a length long enough to go around the whole thing and not have to grab a new thread, which means that it's about 1.5 yards. Thread up my chenille. Put a quilter's knot in the end. Go into center. And then grab and then push the needle out so that it's coming out at the edge, because that's where I'm going to start doing my wraps. Turning it over, and I'm going to start wrapping. For this one, I went ahead and used this huge O-ring, and just to see what it would be like. It's actually not bad, so maybe I will put the link for that below. And I'm going to go ahead and do my wraps. So you want to, it's a little tricky with this O-ring because it's got such a big wide girth here, but you're doing a wrap the way you would do a wrap for a Dorset button. But instead of having the ridge at the bottom or the top, you just want to make sure your ridge is at the bottom. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to come out the back. I'm going to make sure that my thread is wrapped below so that I'm going through it. And pull it through. Make sure that wrap is down at the bottom here. Come in again, and whatever number I'm doing on this one is what I'm going to do the whole way around. So I'm doing 3, and I think I can do one more. And 4, just want to make sure I'm covering the ring so that it's, I think I can do one more. So this would be 5. So I'm going to do 5 all the way around. And you can either slide your needle underneath these like this, which is what I typically do, or you can just have it go over. And now I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to do 5 wraps on this one, and I'll continue around in this manner. And this is how I do all the wraps. And I'll keep going. So I finished wrapping all the way around, and this is the way it looks. I'm going to go ahead and take my thread to the back of the work. I'll weave it into the back here. I'm going to tie a little knot just to ensure that it's not going anywhere. Weave it back through and trim the end. And you can see how different these look just depending on the color choices that you use. I'll show a little bit of how I did this one. This is with a spun silk, but these are all the same idea. They're just varying different thread types and varying how much of the center you see. This one obviously is the closest. All right, so I've got 2 pearl cottons here, an 8 weight, and then I've got a spun silk. And I'm going to go ahead and start with, I think I'll start with this one. I think I'm going to do 3 of these. That's 2, that's 3. And you're going to turn it 1, 2, 3, turn it 1, 2, 3. So what I do is I just start to tweak this so that it's pretty even. Doesn't have to be exact, but I want it as even as I can get it, because once I start wrapping, I want these guys to be as close as I can get them. That's pretty good. Okay. I'm going to take my next color, this one. So the farther away you are from this center line, the larger your hole is going to be. And you can play with that. You'll see what I mean. So let's say here's my center. If I go from this one to here, I'll show you what you'll see quickly, how big a hole I'm going to get. If I went even farther away, I would have had a bigger hole. But the next thread that I'm doing, I'm going to go farther away so that I see a little glimpse of this thread, like this, right? This gray thread is what I'm doing right now, and the red thread, I went even farther away. We're not at the red thread yet. So bottom to top, bottom to top. So there's my next round. And do you see that this is the last one? It goes from here to here. So instead, I'm going to go from here to here. I've got to keep these pretty taut. And do you see how it's giving me a wider range? So I'm seeing this, and now this is the edge. You can go even wider, but the wider you go, the harder it becomes to keep these together. They just start to slide off. So you just have to be aware of that. And know that it's going to be a little bit more challenging. So I finished here. I'm going to turn this over carefully. I'm going to hold my finger down. I'm going to clip this, thread my needle, and I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to slide my thread under so that I come to the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that I did before with the spun silk. I'm going to secure these wraps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I did here. And then after I've done that, I'm going to do my Dorset wrap of the rest of the ring. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, let's keep stitching together.